Hello, welcome to this week's podcast with Karen, that's me, and Dr. Ray Andrew, one of my favorite medical doctors. He's so easygoing. He's so much fun. He's so versatile. He even has a surgeon certificate hanging on the wall that he doesn't talk about. But I mean, this guy is amazing. And when you're talking about like going on the edge, Dr. Ray is there. So he not only does your regular, medical doctory thing, but he's totally respectful and into a lot of the naturopathic healing modalities, which is probably why he's one of my favorite medical doctors, because I love him. And so Dr. Ray, thank you so much for joining us today while we talk about men's libido and ED. And thank you for joining us. Do you want to give a quick shout out and welcome to everybody for coming to hear you speak?
Thank you for having me. I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Me? You're speaking.
Oh, okay.
Well, and really, I'm very excited about this topic only because years and years ago, over a decade ago, when we had our lab in Wisconsin, we were making products and we made a product for erectile dysfunction and it worked like amazing. And it was like $22 is all we charged. And it had all your circulation herbs. So as obviously as years went by and we learned more and more about reproductive system, there's a lot of things that actually play a role in men's health. And so Dr. Ray, we're so honored that you're with us today. You have so much to share that I'm kind of happy. I would love for you to jump in and just start talking about some of the main reasons men are dealing with erectile dysfunction and some of the things that you have found they can do at home and popping over to an office such as yours.
It's really amazing. We used to think of testosterone deficiency and erectile dysfunction as problems of old folks in their 90s, but we see it even in the 20s and 30s now. It's insane, and it parallels all the other increased disease that we have seen in our country over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I always shock people when I ask them, when we're talking specifically about Alzheimer's disease, because they're concerned about their brains. And I ask them, when do you think the first case of Alzheimer's was diagnosed? And nobody comes anywhere close. It was 1907. And what's significant about that is we went nearly 6,000 years without Alzheimer's. And that's the case with a lot of diseases. So sadly, erectile dysfunction and testosterone deficiency, which are separate but do have a relationship, they've exploded. They used to not be a thing. So not only are we seeing it in people in their 50s and 60s, where a lot of men would expect to see them when they shouldn't, even though they shouldn't, but we also see it in much younger. And it has everything to do with our crappy lifestyles. Not only our personal decisions, which aren't always the best, but also our societal decisions. And societally, we've destroyed our health. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir here because everyone here knows that. And everyone here is obviously making every effort they can to help people avoid, to the extent that it's possible, the influences of our modern society. So I don't know if you want to get more specific, but I'm open to your next question.
Yeah, well, I know that when you and I have done videos on this in the past. We have them in our programs, and I'm so grateful for those. And I love the fact that you pointed out like the top 4 reasons, that men are dealing with erectile dysfunction. Obviously, it's a circulatory issue. That's one of the main things because this is blood flow, right? And I think for a lot of people, they don't realize that. And when they stop to think about it, they're like, of course, that is blood flow. And so if I have erectile dysfunction, I actually have a circulatory, disorder, which then it becomes pretty easy to go, okay, what am I eating? What are the chemicals that are coming into my body? But you have some really fantastic ways of helping to, correct that. Can besides just taking a circulatory tincture for $20 and, can you talk about some of those things that you've recommended in the past? And again, if you can talk maybe about not just the physical, but some of the psychological things that are going on in these young men, because it isn't just the older ones anymore. We've got 18 and 19-year-old men that come to see me that are having an issue. So this is definitely a much bigger issue than it ever has been.
Yeah. So starting in the psychological, it blows my mind at how many young people have anxiety these days. Anxiety and depression are rampant. What is the cause of that? Well, there isn't a cause of it. It's multiple causes, obviously. But again, we have just an explosion of toxicity. Let me give one toxin that everyone here in this room is aware of and needs to talk to your clients about or to yourself about, and that is electromagnetic frequencies. Right?
Yes.
I can't tell you how often I will be sitting across the table from a patient and I say, "Where's your cell phone?" And they pull it out of their pocket, their front pocket or their back pocket. It doesn't matter which pocket it's in. It's either close to your ovaries or it's close to your testicles. And so is it any surprise that we have an explosion of infertility? That's one of the big causes of infertility and testosterone deficiency. You're radiating your gonads every minute of every day. So I'm telling people, get that phone off your body as much as you possibly can. I know it's kind of a necessary evil in our society, and we can't live without it, and it's hard to carry. You can't walk around holding I mean, I suppose you could, but it's not very practical to hold a selfie stick with your cell phone 3 feet away from you. But as soon as you sit down, put it down on the floor, put it on a table, put it on a chair next to you, or just as far away as you can. In a similar vein, people have no idea how much testosterone is affected by Wi-Fi. And so I will do biofeedback scans and find that electromagnetic frequencies are interfering both with hormone production as well as with sleep. So I tell men and women, if you're going to have that phone in your bedroom, put it on airplane mode. It still works great to wake you up when it's time to wake up, because the alarm isn't interfered by airplane mode, but you need to not be bombarded with those signals, especially so many people keep them in bed with them or put them right on their nightstand next to their head, which is the last place you want it.
Dr. Andrew, I want to ask
Yes.
you a question about that, because I've had many of my women that are testosterone deficient. I mean, in the last year, it's just
Yes.
exploded. I mean, I've always had some, but I've had so many that have been affected by that. And I just want to mention one trick that has worked for my clients, because I speak on EMF quite a bit. You can actually get EMF protective fabric, and you can actually put those in as your pockets. So you can actually sew them into your pocket lining to help protect. If you're going to if you have to be on a job and you have to have that phone near you, even if it's in a case buckled on your pocket, you can line the pants or your pocket with that, at least to help a little bit. Just want to throw that out there. But can you just expand just for a few minutes on testosterone deficiency and maybe what we can do? I recommend there's a great herbal balancing formula from Herbally Grounded called Might for Men, or Balance. Is the exact same product. It's just called differently for a man or for a woman. And I've recommended that. But what are some tips and tricks we can talk about when it comes to testosterone deficiency, Dr. Ray?
Well, let me finish up the EMF for 1 second, and
Please do.
And that is turn your Wi-Fi off at night.
Mm-hmm.
Most people do not need Wi-Fi when they're sleeping. So if you get a timer, like the Christmas lights timer that you use at Christmas time, Just set it so that it turns off when you are not going to need it and comes back on when you do need it. So how to increase testosterone? There are lots of things. You're familiar, of course. There are things, I like to put everything we do into a framework. We either want to remove things that don't belong in the body, restore things that do belong in the body, and or use different variety of tools that help the body function the way it was designed to function. So with regard to testosterone, we need to remove things that don't belong. That includes, of course, EMFs, but also there are a number of things that we do to ourselves, such as alcohol, that kill testosterone production. Caffeine, even in small amounts, has been found to suppress testosterone. Birth control pills in women are killers because they shut off the brain's stimulus to the ovaries, which means you're not making hormones because the bulk of your estradiol, testosterone, and progesterone are made in the ovaries from eggs. So the last thing you want to do is shut off the ovaries using birth control pills. Another increasingly common toxin that as we age, and now even younger and younger, is statin drugs. Statin drugs have the wonderful property of reducing cholesterol. Of course, in our community, we recognize that cholesterol is actually essential to life. None of us exist without it. And when we reduce cholesterol, guess what we make all of our steroid hormones with? They require the cholesterol backbone. So cortisol, DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, estradiol, androstenedione, aldosterone, you name it, all of them come from cholesterol. So we're shooting ourselves in the feet when we take these drugs that are supposed to reduce our risk of heart disease, not realizing that they don't reduce our risk of heart disease, but that's another matter. But they actually increase our risk of heart disease because testosterone deficiency in men and women is a primary risk factor for heart disease. So that's a few toxins. Processed foods are another good source of impairing testosterone production.
I have to tell you, in my book, Live, I actually, in my sex chapter, I always, I have this picture, and it's like, erectile dysfunction and low libido is in the meat section, because like all the processed meats will just, so I just started giggling. I apologize. You can continue, but it's true. These men who are addicted to alcohol and bratwurst and hot dogs and hamburgers and salami, I'm like, you're just going to end your whole sex life really young. So I just had
right. Yes. Another thing, and this isn't very high tech, but sleep. Sleep is kind of important, and deficiency of sleep will also impair testosterone production. Okay, so on the things that can help, the natural things that can help, there are a number of different nutrients. Of course, most people have heard of Tribulus terrestris. There's also nettle root. Saw palmetto is a well-recognized stimulant of testosterone production. Zinc picolinate, if someone is deficient in zinc. Vitamin A, vitamin C, boron, fish oil, and ironically, of all things, sexual activity actually increases testosterone. Another thing is decreasing caloric intake, which is kind of a problem in America because we do eat a couple of extra calories per day. Good hydration, plenty of water, at least 2 liters a day, and reducing stress. Of course, that's piece of cake for everyone here, right?
Don't watch the news, and all of a sudden,
don't watch the news.
That's right.
Stress is a big impediment to testosterone production.
And
Um,
doctor,
yes.
as you wrap up testosterone, I would love you to talk about the psychogenic factors, because you really made some awesome points in the videos that we did for the TNC course. And so I'm just wondering if you can roll into that when you can here as well. I think a lot
Okay.
of times we don't realize that, and we might look at our sons or our husbands or our fathers, and we just, what can we do to help each other through this as well? Because I think that society is, especially with all the man hate that's out there, it is not helping anything. So if you can roll into that, that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, I will get to that in 1 second.
Thank you.
The last things I would say about testosterone are exercise. Exercise, to an extent, will stimulate testosterone. There are points at which, if a person exercises and he or she finds him or herself worn out after exercising, then that's not helping, and you're going to have to increase testosterone another way, whether it's by taking testosterone or by using other natural means. But that is one of the first go-tos, is try exercise. And then a couple more toxins I want to mention are heavy metals. Heavy metals interfere with the brain signaling to the testes. So whenever we see a gentleman with a low FSH and a low testosterone, his brain is not sending the signal to the testes to do their job. And the testes are probably perfectly fine. They're just not getting the message. And to get the message, they often have to get some heavy metals out of the way. Another one you may be aware of is glyphosate. Glyphosate is ubiquitous, and it is awful. And there's actually, we do have ways now of removing glyphosate, different combinations, different products can and protocols can remove glyphosate, but obviously reducing our exposure in the first place is going to be important. Now, something that a lot of people don't recognize is they say, well, I'm living a perfectly clean lifestyle. And I say, yeah, but the toxins that you accumulated before you started this perfectly healthy lifestyle are still with you. And we have to get rid of them because they're still impairing your cellular functions. Okay, back to.
Well, no. I'm going to stop you for a second, because then, we would recommend binders, zeolite and charcoal and bentonite clay. There's so many binders. Do you have a particular binder that you prefer, that like someone's listening to this for the first time and they're like, oh my gosh, what can I do immediately? What would you recommend?
No, those are all good.
Okay.
I like those. But the trick is those are in the gut. And they're not going to pull the toxins out of your cells in your brain and in your liver and in your fat cells and your adrenal glands. So we do need to get a little more serious, a little more sophisticated when we're talking about removing toxins that are embedded in tissues. So that's a different story.
Okay,
but
we'll have a different time. We'll have you on for binders.
Okay.
How's that sound?
a great starting point, though, is to do a binder, because if you do have, if your liver is able to remove some of the toxins, at least the current toxins that are circulating, there's a difference between embedded and circulating toxins. The circulating toxins can be removed by the liver. Usually that's within the first 30 days of exposure. Then they'll go into the bile, and then from the bile, they go into the stool. And then that's where the binders really come in handy, because then they can grab onto them before they can recirculate through the enterohepatic circulation back to the portal vein and back into the liver, which obviously is a disaster, because you've detoxified and then you retoxify. So binders are excellent in that regard. Moving to psychosocial factors, are you talking about performance anxiety, or are you talking about?
Yeah, kind of. We have about 10, 15 minutes left, and I want to touch on that for sure. And I want to talk about the Pshot. I want to talk about some of those things, because I think there's a lot of people who don't know that there's things that they can do that will help, besides, all the formulas and rebuilding testosterone. So yeah, if you can jump into this would be wonderful.
Well, I I don't remember what I was talking about in the that you're referring to in the psychosocial, other than the fact that we do have a lot of there are relationship challenges, and of course, if a couple does have relationship challenges, that's definitely going to kill both libido and performance. But also, if a man or a woman has difficulty climaxing, even once, that does make them gun shy, and that can really impair confidence to continue. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If it doesn't work once, then that can be really difficult and make it harder to even want to try. But it can also sabotage efforts in the future because of that lack of confidence. Another factor that's important there is antidepressants, because antidepressants have profound effects on both sexual drive and performance. So we want to look for, to the extent that it's possible, underlying causes to address mood and anxiety disturbances, to make it so that an individual doesn't need to rely on the drugs. But what else would you like to talk about psychosocial?
No, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned some of it. And the antidepressants is a big thing, because when I see someone come in and they're on statins and antidepressants and they have no libido, it's a pretty easy fix. I mean, not easy fix, of course, but it's a pretty easy explanation. You have everything going against you. So of course, this is going to be difficult. So just before we get into like the Pshot, just to recap. So we're going to remove the toxins, EMFs, whatever we can do. We're going to start building testosterone. And I'm telling you, nettle, you can get nettle in a tincture form. It works phenomenal, right? So we've recommended that for many, many, many years. Plus you lose weight. Men lose weight when they start taking nettle, only because it builds up their testosterone. And so they lose weight, they have a better metabolic response. So they metabolize easier. So again, some wonderful products there. Definitely look at the circulatory tinctures and products that you can have, that you can use for that. I will mention that this is 2022, and during 2021, we had a lot of people that had a lot of toxins put into their body, and we've never had a worse time for myocarditis on the planet. We've never had a worse experience when it comes to blood clotting. Even the funeral directors are pulling these enormously long 3 feet clots out of the people who've passed away as they pull the blood out to put the formaldehyde in. These people are literally just dying of these huge blood clots. And so this is a very real epidemic. And that's why we've seen erectile dysfunction just go through the roof in the last, even in the military, they track every single, well, the whole country. In most countries, your medical doctor will track with a code what you're coming in for. And then those can be read. We can see, okay, we always have about 2,500 people a month who have depression, and 2,700 women who blah, blah, or men have, ED, whatever. And then like now the numbers are out of the sky. And so this is something that we need to address. So as we go into what the Pshot can do and some things they can do at home, and even the Oshot, we can address some of the women concerns here as well. I just wanted to make sure we had that brief, okay, here's some things you can do right away. And now here are some things you might need to get, help with from, a place such as you who does the Pshot. So can you run along with that for a little bit, Dr. Andrew?
So in terms of erectile dysfunction, we have 4 common causes. Certainly, 80% of erectile dysfunction involves vascular disease. So if a man has difficulty with erections, chances are really good he has heart disease and doesn't know it. That's really key because it gives us a window into what's going on in the heart just by what's happening on the outside, yeah, so to speak, or should I say what's not happening on the outside. So the arteries in the penis are about the same size as the arteries in the heart. And the forces that are acting on the arterial system don't only affect the heart, they affect the brain and the kidneys and everywhere the blood vessels go, including the penis. So So one of the factors that we target when a man has erectile dysfunction, after he has adequate testosterone, because testosterone is the other largest factor, is vascular disease. How do we deal with that? Well, there's two approaches, and this is basically what we do with just about any disease, and that is we address the current disease while we're working on the factors that cause the disease in the first place so that it doesn't recur. So to address the current disease, there are two approaches that we take, well, maybe three. We want to dilate the arteries in the penis. Everyone's familiar with a couple of drugs by the name of Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra. That's three. Those stimulate the production of nitric oxide, which locally dilates blood vessels. Of course, it dilates them throughout the body, not just the penis. And so you do have risk of blood pressure lowering in men who are already on blood pressure medicines. So that's a concern. But we want to reduce or rather increase nitric oxide production. And there are a number of different products that are widely available that include beetroot powder and L-citrulline and L-arginine. I do have to make a note, and a number of other nutrients, including amino acids. But I do need to make a note. People have latched onto L-arginine and say, oh, that's the magic bullet, except when you're over 20, which most men with erectile dysfunction are. L-arginine, the body does not convert it adequately into the active form that can be used for nitric oxide production. So we need to use other things like L-citrulline and beetroot powder or beetroot juice. And there are a number of other nutrients, certainly a number of B vitamins and other vitamins and minerals that contribute to nitric oxide production.
And those exercise bands, Dr. Andrew, those work really well as well.
And exercise bands. Mm-hmm. Okay, next thing is breaking up the plaques that are already there. How we do that the increasing nitric oxide production helps over the long run, but in the short run, you need to break up the plaques, and how we do that is using acoustic wave therapy. So it's the same kind of device, it's the same technology that is used to break up stones in the kidneys. So very powerful, except we use a lot gentler approach on penises than we do on kidneys, because kidney stones, you've got to go through part of the body to get to them, and the stones are obviously quite solid. So we use a gentle approach, a device. We use a cream to numb the penis because it doesn't like having a device hitting it multiple times per second without being numb. And that we do a series of sessions, 6 sessions in a row, usually either twice a week or once a week. And then we can augment that if it's more severe, the erectile dysfunction, with the Pshot. Or a number of men will just use the Pshot instead of the acoustic wave therapy. The Pshot,
is there, before you continue the Pshot, is there a name for acoustic wave therapy, or does a gentleman who lives in a different state just Google acoustic wave therapy for penises near me? Like, how do you find that so they would know how to look for that?
There are a number of different names. They are proprietary names, so okay. They're brands, and I don't want to. I used to pay a lot of money to one of these companies so that I could use their brand name, but it's all the same thing. Everyone does the same basic process. So you could just Google shock wave therapy or acoustic wave therapy
Thank you.
for erectile dysfunction, and you'll be able to find plenty of places that do it. So moving to the Pshot, the Pshot uses an individual's platelets. So we draw your blood, and then we spin it down with a high-speed centrifuge, faster than the blood draw kind of centrifuge, and remove the platelets and inject the platelets into specific places in the penis. And every time I mention that, both men and women start to cringe. And then I say, no, don't worry, you don't feel it because the penis is numb. And so we inject it into 5 places on the penis. And those platelets have growth factors that stimulate new blood vessel formation to get around plaques. So that's another means of increasing blood flow to the penis to improve erectile function and as well as Peyronie's disease, which is an abnormal curvature to the penis when it's erect, which is very painful and makes intercourse very difficult. Shall we transition to the Oshot for a second?
Yeah, go right ahead. I think a lot of people aren't aware these even exist. And so I thought, well, I should throw it in there as a bonus.
So the Oshot is the corollary to the Pshot. Incidentally, P in Pshot doesn't stand for penis, it stands for priapus. And the Oshot stands for orgasm. This is in women. So we do the same process. We remove blood from the vein and spin it down, remove the platelets, inject the platelets into the numb clitoris and vagina. And the clitoris is the female analog to the penis. And what most women and doctors don't recognize is that little tiny nubbin that we call the clitoris is just the tip of the clitoral iceberg. So the clitoris actually extends far deeper behind what we actually physically see. And so we inject platelets into the space, the organ of the clitoris, and it fills the clitoris so that it becomes much more sexually responsive. Hopefully like it used to be, or like maybe it never was in some cases. And then we inject more into the vagina, just behind the hymenal ring, between the vagina and the bladder. And incidentally, some of you may recognize that as the G-spot. But part of the advantage of this is this thickens the wall between the vagina and the bladder to help with continence. And a lot of women find after they've had children that they can't jump on the trampoline or cough or laugh or sneeze anymore without having little squirts. And some women don't seem to like that very much. So by injecting platelets into that region, then we can strengthen that wall, and that often does the trick. Now, as soon as I say that, I have to add, we also use hormone pellets, and we will often give women some estrogen, small dose of estrogen, and that also can have profound effects on incontinence, on making it so that you don't have to run to the bathroom in a hurry. And at the same time, it improves the ability of the vagina. We see both atrophy in the vagina that no longer has estrogen and no longer has testosterone or progesterone. Using those hormones, we can increase the thickness of the vagina and the moisture of the vagina, rather the responsiveness of the vagina, so that under sexual stimulation, moisture is produced where it no longer is once you're in menopause.
You know, what I love, Dr. Ray, and that's why I love having you as part of Holistic Health Educators, is that yes, you will use some hormonal pellets, here and some there, but it's not, you're looking to put someone on them for the rest of their life. And I think that's very important. I think a lot of people, because we don't all recommend, obviously, hormonal therapy. However, if we can do something to help increase and thicken our walls, so that we can avoid a prolapsed uterus, or we can avoid, other ailments, I think that it's something that you're really respectful of. And I want to thank you for that. And I would encourage all those of you who are students or who are involved in natural health, find those in your community, such as Dr. Ray. For Pete's sake, he's a medical doctor who does biofeedback. Hello, find them, because they're everywhere, especially now. You have many more medical doctors coming out of the woodwork who want to work with people in the natural world and kind of combine those worlds. Okay, Dr. Andrew, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, the funnest thing for me is to talk to a couple who have not had sex in 10 or 15 years and have them come back a couple of months later and say, we're having sex 3 days a week.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, because people don't realize, people think that, I can't tell you how many times I hear couples in their 50s and 60s saying, yeah, we've graduated beyond that. We don't need that anymore. And really, that's their way of saying, we don't want to feel bad, or we don't want to make our partner feel bad about the fact that they can't perform anymore, or that it's too painful, or that they have zero drive. And when you see people in their 80s giggling about how much fun they're having in bed, that's really exciting.
It is. That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Andrew, so much. And thank you all of you for joining us today. The podcasts are a great way that we can get information out to the public. We encourage you to check out our blog spot, and look at all of our podcasts, share them with your friends. Dr. Andrew, thank you for taking this time to be with us today. We certainly appreciate all that you offer, and all the information you can share with us. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome. So now that I know we need to do what do we have to do one on binders? Okay, I love binders. We can talk about detoxification with binders. I'll put that on the schedule. Anyhow, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Andrew. Thank you, everyone. And we will catch you on the next podcast. Until then.